one. You know what? Let me let Banky start rolling off, and then I guess I could fit in maybe some of the other questions along the way. So, Banky.
All right. Before I go at it, let me just put out a little thing there. You have two pageants coming up. One for the New River Farmers Cooperative, which we call Miss Earth Princess, which is September 28th. So at the new name, which we probably know at the Nevis Cultural Complex, but I think his Nedak his name is now. So if I pronounce it right. So go out and support this one. Will be a Saturday, September 28th. You have at least 6 young ladies will be taking part in different primary schools where they'll be learning about different aspects in agriculture. And I know it's something great that they're doing, because the first one they have, this should be the second or third one. I attended the one that they had, and it was a beautiful thing. When this, even if it's back one student, it's a long way we can add it to when it comes to help our food security. So it is fitting. And also, as the PR for the Charleston Secondary School, they would also have the Charleston Secondary School pageant show, which will be coming up in October 18th at the same address. So also that is something to go and support in October, which is the month of World Food Day. So hopefully they have something attached to that when it comes to one of those skills that they will be using. So as I said, good evening to all those who are just tuning in. And our guest this evening is the Premier of Nevis, Mr. Mark Brantley. I mean, one of our best legal brain and expert, and who is the best person to come to, who is with us when it comes to talking about agriculture, land policies, water policies, cannabis, and the way forward for Nevis and food security and stuff like that. So, Mr. Brantley, welcome. And you're not a stranger when it comes to Everything Agriculture Show. You always let me know, Bank. If you need me, just reach out to me and you make yourself available. And you're a man that stand by your word, and I got to respect that and appreciate that. So, welcome, and your opening statement.
Banky, thanks a million. Yasan, welcome home. As you say, it's been a while. So I'm happy that you're back on the rock. And really, to all of your listeners, your viewers, I think you are streaming on various platforms. I want to say good evening to them. I'm looking forward to a good discussion, Banky and Yasan. I think that it's important that in our public engagements, we root our discussions in fact. And I have heard a lot of conjecture and a lot of speculation and a lot of, frankly, hysterical assertions. And I feel that it is time that we put the facts on the table and let us have a fact-based debate. Let us have a discussion that is grounded in fact. And I am not one to engage in too much discussion and hyperbole and hypotheticals. I prefer to just talk to people straight up, have a honest and frank conversation. And that is why, Banky, I've always said to you that if you need me, call me, because I feel that it is part of my duty as the Premier of Nevis to find our people wherever they are. If they're in the bar shop, I'm going there. If they're in the barber shop, I'm going there. If they're in the salon and all, I'm going there. And certainly, I know that you have a good following, and so I want to be here with you. And the questions that I can answer, I will. If there's some that are too technical for me, because I know I'm in a room with agricultural experts, I guess you'll have to forgive me. But certainly, I'm here to have a conversation, and hopefully at the end of the evening, this conversation would have enriched those who are tuning in and those who are paying attention. So thank you for the opportunity.
I greatly appreciate it. Enough respect. I mean, and as the shows go by, you might hear we say Mark, I mean, say Brantley. I mean, we all know each other, and with respect, I mean, I think it's appropriate, and we all don't mind something like that. So let the general public, the first time listeners, know exactly how the closeness as we go about it. So it's not in no disrespect, anything like that. And the Premier, you're okay with that, right?
Of course.
All right, good. Okay, so this evening, as I said, if you're just listening, we'll be speaking about cannabis, agriculture, food security, water policy, land policy, and the SSZ. So all these topics gonna combine within the discussion. So we're gonna start off with the special sustainable zone authorization act, which is all been passed. So the Premier going to explain how this act works, and it was passed in the Federal House, which means it's a federal bill which goes applied to Nevis as well, to show how the Constitution works. And Premier, I mean, you are distinguished in these things in your legal skills. So my listening audience, I'd like to know, for those even in kindergarten listening to the show, have an idea how this stuff works, and when they listen, they can understand. So, well, Dad, I hear the Premier said this and this and stuff. That's fine. So a bill like this, which is drafted by the federal government, how long does something like this takes? How does it work? Do they consult with Nevis and saying, well, we're going to be drafting up a bill. These are the stuff. Are they just put in, we ain't put in this for Nevis, that for Nevis, and then when they come to the house, Nevis either apply. So what period of time will something like this takes and to get into effect? And when was the first reading of this bill and then the final reading and stuff like that? And does the public don't really have proper understanding how it works? So walk us through how a bill like this is set up and how if discussion is made on then Nevis just go and debate. Yes.
All right. So thank you for the opportunity again. The Special Sustainability Authorization, the Special Sustainability Zone Authorization Act was passed on the 11th of August, 2025 in the National Assembly. Let me correct one thing, Banky. Not all legislation passed in the National Assembly automatically applies to Nevis. It depends on the topic. It depends on the subject matter. So in this case, this legislation provides in its terms that it will apply to Nevis, and that had to be with the consent, therefore, of the Nevis Island Administration. The Constitution provides that where legislation is passed in the National Assembly on a matter over which the NIA has responsibility, the NIA can signal its acceptance that it would apply to Nevis, and so this legislation does that. I want to go back in time for a moment. I have been, since I was in the national government up until 2022, and since then I've been in the role of leader of the opposition at the federal level. I have been advocating for efforts to diversify the St. Kitts Nevis economy. I don't think, gentlemen, that it is any secret that we have been incredibly dependent on citizenship by investment. The citizenship by investment goose has been laying that golden egg for a very long time. And I think in many ways, the country has become addicted to CBI. It is quite clear to me, and I think to others who are observing, that the CBI has come under tremendous international pressure. I'm not going to debate whether that's fair or unfair. It's simply what it is. And as a consequence, I expect fully that that goose that has been laying the golden egg is going to get a lot thinner, a lot slimmer, and that those eggs are not going to be as golden as they used to be. So I have been advocating for opportunities, innovation, that we get to a point where we have, of course, other options to fuel our economy. You mentioned cannabis. That's one of the things that I've said, listen, let's get on with it. And this notion of a special sustainability zone was one innovation.
Yeah, Premier,
yes.
I know the bill was tabled to the House from the federal government, right?
Yes.
So those are the one who came up with the idea of the bill.
I don't know, but I don't know who came up with. I don't know who came up with the idea.
Well,
I don't know.
The reason why I'm asking, which means Dr. Joe have the same idea with you basically, and the U.S. Minister of St. Kitts, because it's everybody realizes the CBI public are within a situation, so which is the perfect idea that both. Well, I guess that coincidentally everybody had the same idea. So,
well it's not.
Since the federal government came up with the bill, that's what I'm wondering. It come out perfectly with your alignment when I was saying the federal government is going. So they see the same way the CBI is going into dropping that, making the same amount of money. So I'm asking if they had the same idea, or you both had the same idea, or the idea was discussed.
So who had the idea? Who didn't have the idea? I can't say to that. It's a national bill.
Government, I mean, if the federal government, since they may one who tabled the bill and bring the bill to Parliament. Yes. Because the bill, I'm not sure if the same bill could have in Nevis. I'm not sure. Could the same bill have done in Nevis? So that's what I'm saying. I'm just trying to understand what is done in St. Kitts.
Okay. So the National Parliament the bill was presented in the National Parliament because obviously this is a national effort. So what the bill seeks to do is to create a framework to allow these zones to be created on St. Kitts and on Nevis. So Nevis couldn't do that because we couldn't pass legislation in Nevis that would allow a zone to be created in St. Kitts. So this legislation allows that zone to be created on either island, and that is why it was done there. The legislation had my support on the first reading. It was presented by the Prime Minister. And on the second reading, it had the support, certainly from myself, the Honorable Eric Evelyn, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, and then on the government side, it had the support of the Honorable Jeffrey Hanley, the Honorable Dr. Denzel Douglas, and if I recall correctly, the Honorable Congress Maynard. I could be corrected on the last one, but I'm certain about the previous ones that I mentioned. And then, of course, the wrap-up was done by the Prime Minister. Looking at the bill itself, gentlemen, I don't see that the bill is particularly controversial or difficult. There's really nothing about the bill that I see.
Premier, you realize you still you really answer the question. I'm trying to over if the bill could have passed in Nevis, or since the Prime Minister and his cabinet came up with the bill, right? Because I want everyone to listen and understand the bill and appreciate what the bill is intended for. So I want to have a clarity breakdown, because I myself trying to understand these things too. So it's just a general question I'm asking. Since St. Kitts passed the bill into Parliament, our company, because Davis will table the bill, I don't know how long this bill come to take into fruition before each Parliament to draft it. You're the legal mind, so I want to give me an idea. Well, you draft bill before, so but this particular one, which is I said to be a massive bill, but if since St. Kitts come up with the idea, one if you and Dr. Joe basically see, we also the CBI going into a serious situation where we're losing funding, and the US, the United States, and everyone is watching the EU. So which means if there was consulted between you, consultation going between both St. Kitts, Nevis, and NIA, or Dr. just came up with the bill by himself, but which you supported the bill, or if you wanted to support the same thing, or you could have passed the bill in Nevis, and it is done like that. Or I just wondered if there was some kind of collaboration about the bill.
You're taking me all around the place. So let me try to kind of get direct. Yes, a bill could have been passed in Nevis, all right? Yes. But there's certain provisions that these zones may have, like issues in relation to taxes and the like within the zone. Okay. That I believe that is why the Attorney General took the decision that the bill be passed in the national parliament, because there is a need for the national government to be engaged.
Okay. So,
did the NIA have sight of the bill? We did not draft the bill, but we had sight of the bill because, of course, there were provisions in there that impacted Nevis, and the question of how a zone could be created in Nevis. So that bill would have come in draft to our legal advisor in Nevis on that issue, because the provisions that impacted Nevis, obviously, we would have liked to have seen.
So you froze, Yason?
No, I think it's the Premier. I think it's on his end.
The necessary protection that we need. I'm sorry, are we back?
Yes, you got
we're back. We're good. Yes, you have frozen a little bit. Yes. Perfect.
So we were satisfied that the necessary safeguards were there, and that control of lands in Nevis would remain firmly with the NIA. And it is on that basis that we said, fine, we had no objections to this bill.
Okay, so Mr. Brantley, to be clear, because I think this is one of the questions that I'm seeing popping up even in the feed, you were not responsible or part of the crafting of the bill, as you have just explained.
Well, let me say, language is important. You say the crafting of the bill. I did not draft the bill. No.
Right. Okay,
I did not craft the bill. No. The bill was created at the Attorney General's office. That's a standard operating procedure for any bill that goes to the National Assembly. But what I'm saying is that this bill in its draft form did come to our legal department because it had provisions impacting the island of Nevis. And we clearly had to be satisfied that those provisions were satisfactory to us. So I hope that is clear.
Okay. Yes, that's clear. Beautiful. Exactly. See, that's more clarity. Whereas now my 5-year-old goes, well, Daddy, I understand what the Premier said, and these are questions that can come up in primary school. That's what I want. So now I want you to explain, the bill, the zone, how far the zone start, from which point in long points we have a pretty much idea, and where does it end?
But yes, Banky, that's the first. That's the first thing. The question is premised falsely.
Yes.
Why I'm trying to say that is because there is no zone. No zone has been. No zone
Yes.
has been declared. Okay?
Yes.
So that is why I'm saying there's a lot of
Let me rephrase
hysteria.
Let me rephrase my
Yes.
question.
Right.
I retract that. I retract that. There's no zone established.
No.
Let me say, hypothetically, there's a situation where there are some investors seeking to
Yes.
do business here within the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And so can you let us know how much land and what kind of real estate is going to be, the type of development, how much people will be living in the area, what accessibility to the locals, and this is going to still involve land policy, because the area that is situated is the area that I love, and I always work in the area before within the Indian Castle area, and it's a beautiful landscape in Nevis, the backdrop up to Saddle Hill and all the areas, all the way back all the way to Lighthouse, which the disaster management have walks along that coastline every year. So we all know the area, but also you still have area within the Hamilton area, Cameroon, a lot of large area, and Bass. I mean, she have two large properties. You have Montravers, but all of these land is really been sitting down for thousands of years, ain't been used. And the area where by Penny's, from Penny's Beach, come up to the Malcolm Gishard Park and across the road, that's Newfound, 600 acres. You have Montravers, over 1,000 acres, now. And Scarborough, thousands of acres been for hundreds of years sitting down, or thousands of years. So why that specific area? Because when I use with people and when I sit to think, I like to sit down and meditate for minutes of time. Because the only difference that I find the difference between all these areas is the ownership of the land, is the non-nationals, people from different places who is not natives. But on the other side, yes, it might be a little arid because it's on the southern side where you get a wind and so forth. It's arid, you don't have a lot of food, but beautiful soil, beautiful terrain when it comes to agriculture, any kind of development. It can be beautified just like anywhere on the island. With improvement like that, it will still be more rainfall to the area because you're having broadleaf trees and stuff like that. So the environment will change. So why that specific area? After you explain the type of development when it comes to what is the SSZ.
Okay. So, Banky, the truth is you're saying so many things that it's difficult to respond. Right? So allow me to try to respond.
In a one part, because it's a sensitive matter, so I want to make contrast at the same time.
Yeah.
And then that's all it is.
So, Banky, part of the difficulty is because everything is being lumped into the one pot, it leads to some level of confusion as to what it is we're talking about.
What do you mean? Yes, sir.
No.
Yes, you understand what me say, right?
I'm talking about...
You understand what me say. Hold on. Yes, it's confusing then. Yes.
Just give me the opportunity to explain.
I'm talking about the ability to explain in clear terms to the public. So your first question is, how does the SSZ, the legislation, work? Okay?
Yes.
That's one question. There's a separate thing now about a project that is proposed.
Yes.
The two are separate. Because somebody else, you, Banky, can come tomorrow and propose an SSZ on your land, wherever that land is. Yasan can come and propose one on his land. And anybody in St. Kitts can do the same. So I want, first of all, to explain how the SSZ works. The SSZ says, essentially, that any person who has land can approach the government. If the land is in St. Kitts, it will be within the purview of the federal government. If the land is in Nevis, the Nevis Island administration would have to agree to have an SSZ declared over their land. So if you had 5 acres, 1 acre, 10 acres, you make that application. So it presupposes that the person applying has land. Yeah? And they then have to satisfy certain preconditions set out in Section 5 of that Act in order to be considered for that SSZ. So that is fairly clear how that works. And that's why I say the SSZ itself is not controversial. It's only 8 pages, very easy to understand what it sets out.
Yes.
The way an SSZ is created, there has to be some developer who applies. They have to satisfy certain preconditions, such as like an economic impact report, social and environmental impact report. They have to satisfy their health, how they're going to provide health, how they're going to provide electricity, water, infrastructure inside the zone, etc. They're all laid out in the legislation. Then there has to be an agreement. And that agreement has to be, if it's in St. Kitts, signed by the Prime Minister. And if it's in Nevis, it has to indicate that it is approved and agreed by the NIA. That is the Nevis Island Administration. There's a further requirement that it has to be debated in the Parliament. So all that time, the SSZ has not been created. Yeah? So there's steps. So it has to be debated in the Parliament, and then when it's debated in Parliament and passed, that is the point in time in which the SSZ is created. Now, for the SSZ to be implemented, managed, it also provides that if it's in St. Kitts, the Prime Minister, if it's in Nevis, the Premier, can put in place a monitoring committee for any SSZ that is established. So that is the legislation. So I want to move that now just to one side, because I said I don't think there's anything controversial about the legislation.
Yes.
Where the controversy...
Before you move on to the second part, Mr. Premier,
yes,
two things.
Yes.
One, in the SSZ bill that I'm looking at,
yes.
I am seeing it speak to 500-acre minimum.
No. Yes, and that was taken out. That is not in the final bill. That was an earlier draft. That was not passed.
So is that new bill now available to the public that we can see it?
It is. I can certainly send it to you. It should be on the Attorney General's website. That's where they normally put the bills. But that provision was removed that you're talking about.
Okay, so that has been removed. So is there now any minimum?
No.
So as you suggested a while ago, if I have an acre or 2 acres,
absolutely,
I can apply for an SSZ.
Yes,
okay.
Provided you can satisfy the condition.
But there's a maximum amount. But there's a maximum.
No. There's neither minimum nor maximum stated.
Okay.
So there's no minimum or maximum land stated.
Okay. The second query I have, there's a part that says that the government may put together this body to monitor the
monitoring committee. Yes.
Right. It didn't say shall. It says may. And I know in your legal that really makes much of a difference in that fee. So why may and not shall? Because may means that there may not be any either.
Yeah. May gives you a discretion. Shall is mandatory. Frankly, I don't know why it says may as opposed to shall. It just gives the government of the day the option, right? It is possible that if you want to set up such a zone on an acre of land, for example, that there may not be a need for a monitoring committee for that zone because it's a fairly small project. It could be that for a larger project, you may want such a committee. I am not sure why the word may was used, but you are absolutely correct that it says that a committee may be established. I think that is section 9, if I recall correctly, of the legislation. So that is what the law provides.
So something like this can be reappealed or go back into the House and change the wording. And also, when it comes to setting up this legislation, I'm not sure by reasoning if clauses that was put inside, if any clauses was put inside the bill where the government or the people, these investors have been held accountable between the first year. You must do this on a year or 2 years, and then
so that would not be. So Banky, that would not be in the bill. That would be in any agreement. Remember, I said that there are stages to setting up a zone. So there has to be an agreement, and in the agreement is where the controls would be put in place.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
In the agreement between the government and the developer.
Yes.
That's where those controls, performance measures, penalties for lack of performance, etc. Those will all be built into the agreement.
All right, beautiful.
So that's what I'm saying. Yes.
I finished the 2 queries that I had, so he could go back to answer the other question.
So I just want to wrap up by saying that there has been a lot of chatter about the legislation. There's nothing, I think, that is controversial about the legislation. The legislation only provides a framework for these zones to be established. If and when the government were to decide that they want to establish such zones. Now, let's move to the second question, where I think is really where the rubber meets the road. And that question now has to do with the fact that certain developers have come, certain investors have come, and they propose that they would like to do development and have that development under this legislation as a special sustainability zone on the southern side of Nevis. And Banky, you're right. Many of us know it. I know it very well. And I would say that the southern side of Nevis currently is uninhabited. It is undeveloped. There's no water, there's no electricity, there's no roads, there's no infrastructure. And I believe there are one or two houses just past the Long Point Port, but beyond that, you have a whole expanse going all the way around to Hanley's Road where there's nothing. We therefore need to look at development and determine, all right, this is a currently undeveloped area of Nevis. It means, therefore, that it is not contributing anything of significance to our economy, because land that is just sitting there is really not advancing our economy in any way, shape, or form. It's not in agricultural use. It's not really in any use. The lands are just sitting there. In fact, I will tell you that the reports we've had as a government is along that whole coast. In fact, from Fort Charles going all the way around, the biggest problem we face there is massive erosion from the ocean. And so we have not seen over there, you say 100 years, 1,000 years, I would say probably 100 years, we've not seen any form of development in that area. They have looked at that area and they have said that that is the area that they would like to do a development. The government's response is obviously that the lands in that area are privately owned. We are now having our team investigate whether or not there's any land at all in the south of Nevis that is crown land. But as I sit here tonight, and as I speak to you tonight, the only lands that we were aware of that belonged to the people of Nevis in that area were 238 acres of land. And those lands have been swapped to the National Bank for debt when the land for debt swap was done in 2012. So those lands are gone. The rest of the lands over there are owned by private landowners. And so my understanding is that those private landowners are being contacted and asked whether or not they'll be willing to sell their land, lease their land, or whatever it is in relation to their land. Because as I pointed out at the start, in order to have any such zone declared, you must come and say that you have this portion of land that is under your control, and you would like the zone declared in relation to the lands that you own or that you control. So that is where things currently are. Now, to the specifics of the proposal, I believe that, I don't have the number right in front of me, but I think that they're targeting somewhere just above 2,400 acres of land. That's the target area.
Yes,
now,
yes.
I said target area because, of course, it depends on who is willing to sell. Because if people in the target area are not willing to sell, then they need to adjust the boundaries of what it is they're seeking to do. So that is the target area as I understand it. And they are proposing this sustainable zone, which will be based on sustainable practices, environmental protection, but luxury residences and resorts. So it's a lifestyle type of investment that they're proposing. They have indicated that they would anticipate having a minimum of 3 neighborhoods. Now, let me try and explain what I understand by neighborhoods. Four Seasons right now is Four Seasons is a neighborhood. Because you have the resort, and then you have about 80 also villas at Four Seasons that are privately owned. So that neighborhood that is Four Seasons, if you can imagine that, but multiplied by 3, that is my understanding of what they're seeking to do. But to have different...
Four Seasons were about between over 450 to 500 acres.
Yeah, I think it's under 500. It's 400 plus.
Under 500.
Yes.
Okay, so
all
right.
So if you can imagine that, but of course you're now talking about infrastructure, you're talking about roads, you're talking about parks, you're talking about all of this that has to go in as well. So the Four Seasons is a neighborhood, and my understanding is that they would want to create multiples of those within this zone. So one neighborhood might be Four Seasons, one might be, I don't know what other names out there, Amman, Mandarin Oriental. That is what they're seeking to do in that part of Nevis. And as I said, under the legislation, they would have responsibility for finding their own water, electricity, and under the legislation up to 70% has to be renewable. And of course, they would have to put in their own roads and infrastructure in that zone. So I think for Nevisians, you said, Banky, to explain it in a way that the kindergarten student could understand.
Yeah, I would appreciate that, yes.
For Nevisians, the best example I could use of what we are talking about here is a larger version of the Four Seasons, because the anticipation is that it will function very much along similar lines of the Four Seasons. A resort
so each
and
area,
residential.
each neighborhood will consist of much. I guess they might have since they have a size of land in neighborhoods, they will have an idea with how much people would want to live within each community before land space.
I don't have that level. I don't have that level of detail to say, well, how many in each neighborhood.
The overall project target area, when it comes to moving in and out within the area then.
So the numbers that we've got is between 7,000 and 10,000 people that anticipate would either be visiting, living, moving back and forth within that zone. Right? So it's a significant number of people that they anticipate. And of course, like anybody else, even at the Four Seasons, people live there part of the year, they leave, their friends come and occupy, whatever. It's their property. And so, villas at the Four Seasons are rented out, all manner of things are done with the homes there. So I'm using the Four Seasons as an example because I think it's an example that we're all familiar with, including the kindergarten student. It's been here for 30 years. And I think that that's a good example to look at in terms of what is anticipated.
So, yes, any questions?
Yes. In terms of using the Four Seasons scenario, yes, I understand the premise of trying to present a scenario where you can see a big project and some of the spin-offs of the project. However, we didn't have to put in place a SSZ bill to attract a Four Seasons or a Christoph Harbour or a Kittitian Hill, or which have similar amount of land spaces, because I think Kittitian Hill was about 400 acres. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to understand the need for seemingly rushing the bill in this way. And I use rush because at this point, what you're seeking to do is now explain the bill after the bill has been passed. So,
but that is not unusual, Yassans. I don't know why everybody is wringing their hands. How many times in the history, I've been in Parliament for 20 years. I've never explained any bill to people before it is debated in the Parliament. And if you can give me one example, I would yield to you. But that has never been the practice.
Let me interject a little bit there. But we're going to be back and forth because this bill still continue with land agriculture. Because when they had the Cannabis Authority, they had within the community where they have consultation and stuff like that, and then so that happened. And also when they have different, when it comes to fisheries and stuff, when it comes to the industry of commerce, I mean they might have reasoning and certain things. So these things happen at some time because the cannabis is one which is recently, so people kind of relate to something like that. I just wanted to interject that.
So the debate.
One second. Yes, that was one of the responses that I would have had in the sense of the cannabis. Along with that, though, what I am seeking to understand and maybe get you as well as many of the other politicians to realize is that even though something may have been the norm in the sense to me, because holding you guys accountable, not holding you guys accountable, has seemingly become the norm. And so I guess maybe that is why for many of years, you guys would just go in the house and be claiming not doing it on behalf of the people, but without any consultation with the people that you're claiming to go to present bill on behalf of. So because it has become the norm doesn't necessarily make it right, I think it makes it even look worse. I mean, in your guys' scenario, because you should be consulting with the
but
people
my,
who
my
you're doing this
but
for.
my response is, even using your language, if that has become the norm, then it also suggests that the outrage at the norm seems a little odd. Legislation, I've probably been in hundreds of debates in the national parliament on legislation. I cannot recall one time when anyone in the public has started this argument and said, oh, there should have been consultation before the legislation, oh, this and oh, that and oh, the other. That is why I'm saying I am not quite understanding why there's such a furore over the SSD legislation. The legislation itself doesn't do anything. It just provides a mechanism for something to happen if the conditions are satisfied. What I think the debate needs to focus on is the development that is proposed, so that we, the people of Nevis, can make an informed decision.
Excuse me, Dean.
Yes.
I want to make sure we clarify something, because sometimes maybe we're all over the place, so forgive me sometimes, because it is. So that's mean, so the part with the cannabis, when they have consultation, is that's different to this bill, something different when they had consultation? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
You mentioned cannabis, and I'm racking my mind now because I'm wondering what the consultation on cannabis was. I'm not sure it was on the bill. The cannabis consultation, because remember with cannabis, we were moving from a substance that was illegal and a crime to moving now to legalizing it or decriminalizing, whatever the language was. And obviously, cannabis still remains a topic where in some quarters it's a little controversial, right?
Yes.
Some people say, free it up, let everybody have the sacrament and all of that, and other people say it's a bad idea. So I suspect that that is that discussion that was had on cannabis. And you have correctly identified that there were some discussions on cannabis. I am simply saying that I am not aware that there's ever been any widespread public consultation on the details of any bill. Meaning, clause 1 said this, clause 2 said that, clause 3 said that. Okay, what does the public say?
Well, I think, yes, well, me not say, so me just say, I'm talking in general, and like, just reason with different people. So when I speak, I just don't speak my own, you know what I mean? I just try to put everything together, which makes sense when it comes to educating the public. So, yes, they might be speaking on an act of a particular bill, but the reasoning part of it from the general public will have insight. So when they come to sit down and reason, so well, the general public said, well, we would like to have this part put inside the code. This is what we're using for years, and this is what, just back and forth and whatever, and they figure it out because they have different professionals involved. So some in that term, not because the bill ain't passed yet, but at least the general public had a say within it, rather than something like this because of the magnitude of it, more or less. But I can see where you're coming from, in a sense like that, because the bill itself haven't been passed at the time, but they had a first reading, and that's why I asked you how long it takes to put one of these bills together, the time frame, before you end up even in the parliament for the first reading, because I don't know. And I don't like to assume. So even if my daughter, you understand, yes.
Right. So bills vary, of course, in size. There are bills that are hundreds of pages long, and there's a bill like this which is 8 pages. So bills are different complexity, etc.
Bill. Okay. So the Charleston Accord, how much pages was that bill?
That was not a bill.
I don't know. You're doing it. You see what I mean? So just having to have an idea, in a sense, guys. We don't know how long this bill takes. And that's just the truth. You see what I mean? You're the drafter. Yes.
So the Charleston Accord was not a bill. The Charleston Accord was an agreement between 3 political parties.
Yes.
Okay.
Of course.
So I don't think that that's the best example. If we look at bills, bills go through a process in the parliament.
Well, I mean, we only use it as an example because of the seriousness of the Charleston Accord. Because you still would even say, even into the parliament, even though it's not law, they should abide by it. So I'm just using these examples because of the magnitude, and you're not putting it into parliament as a legal mind, as I say. You didn't put it, but to use the same agreement, which means I for one feel like they should stay by it. That is just my personal opinion, because they're saying the signature, and that's their word. So I for one, generally with reason, say, man, watch that. is morally have a play, but some people don't still, and they'll come back and say, oh, you should pass a bill. It's crap. So I supporting that. So I just go in using this example where I use the Charleston card, because I'm for one supporting Charleston card. It is not a bill. I stand with you with that, because give Nevis what belongs to them, and that is how I see it. So, but continue.
Yeah, okay. So the normal process for a bill is that obviously, if it's in the national parliament, because this bill was there, so let me look at that process. That bill would be drafted by the Attorney General's office, and it would go to the parliament for first reading. We as parliamentarians, we would get a notice that the parliament is convening, and we would get in that notice what bills are coming up for first reading. Once we get that, we obviously get copies of the bill and we have an opportunity to peruse it. As I said, in this particular situation, we had this bill prior because there were provisions in there that impacted Nevis and impacted the Nevis Island administration. I've spoken to that earlier. So the ordinary process would be you get the bill, you then go to the parliament. On the first reading is just to introduce the bill. Somebody gets up and said, I move a motion to have the bill read for first time, and somebody gets up and they second it. That's all that happens. That bill then goes into the public domain. In the ordinary course, it is published, it is put on the Attorney General's website. We as parliamentarians have copies of it, and we can then go through it and prepare ourselves for a debate that comes at some later point. So in this case, that debate came on the 11th of August, and that is when the bill was debated in the parliament. The provisions were highlighted, what the bill seeks to do, what the intentions behind the bill are, all of those are debated. And then that's where you have the A's and the Nays. Some say they agree, some say they do not agree, as the case may be. Now, let me, however, say that there are possibilities sometimes where a bill goes through first, second, and third reading in one sitting. First, second, and third reading. So maybe it's an urgent bill, or maybe it's a very simple bill, like if you want to change a word in legislation. So it goes first, second, and third reading in that one sitting. That's also possible, but that was not the case in this situation.
So,
Okay.
Mr. Brantley.
Yes, any questions?
Yeah. So, what I was alluding to with when I spoke about the Four Seasons and similar example with Petition Hill and things like that, and the fact that we did need a special bill to address this. Now, on the Nevis side, one of the things that we have to look at, and this is why I am thinking that this probably should have been a discussion, because even though we look at representative democracy, in the sense that you being elected is a representative for the people who would have given you that moment to go and represent them, to me, it's still important that you seek to consult with these people before making these decisions on behalf of these people. Because here is it that when you go in Parliament and say that you support this bill, what you are saying, based on the type of government that we have, is that the people who put you there are saying that they support this. When in reality, the fact that you are here at this point, having to do all of this media work, so to speak, that what one would consider is damage control, so to speak, to try to explain what, and I guess this is part of why it is sort of seeming controversial, as you may put it, that the bill itself is not necessarily controversial, but the way it was done, and the history of land in Nevis is critical. We know from the slavery era what our foreparents would have gone through in order to be able to now own lands. And that is one of the reasons why land is so sentimental. And St. Kitts, they would have maintained the plantation, the sugar plantations. The governments have a lot more land. A lot of the land on Nevis, so to speak, is private owned land. And so there's that sentimentality to land to some extent on one end. And then there's the other end where some people have land, and just like any form of investment, some people have lands as a form of investment, knowing that, okay, the land may value this at this point, but maybe 10, 20 years down the road, the land may increase in its value, and or a project similar to the Four Seasons might come there and add value to the property. So even if they're going to sell it at that point, they may be able to profit from it. So
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I agree with you that land is sentimental. I agree with your historical overview. But if Yassan Tafari has 100 acres of land that is owned by him or owned by his family, and he is approached by a developer, by an investor, by whoever, to sell his land, lease his land, isn't that a decision for Yassan Tafari?
Of course.
Okay. The point that I'm seeking to make here is that despite all that you have said about the sentimentality and the history, which is a very difficult history that we've had, of course, and you are absolutely correct about land, it also reinforces the point that people who own land have to be accorded the respect to determine what they will do with their land. It is their property. And one of the difficulties, you talk about controversy, one of the difficulties that I have had in this discussion, this public debate, is the level of misrepresentation that has been put into the public domain. For example, one of the first claims that was made was that the government was selling out lands in the South Coast to these developers. I'm sure you all would have seen that. The truth is that the government, as I pointed out, yes.
Sorry about that. I understand where you're so coming from and where you're coming from, because we are going to say things with our own person, with our own views, which is fine. And that's why earlier I put certain things into context where you figure what I said, because everything intertwined, because so let us ask you why over that area, because we still have land over in Newfound area on the Penny's Beach, and that is the most prestigious area. I'm not saying it's you choose the area, you know. I'm not saying you choose the area.
Well, that's my point. Well, you've answered your own question.
I know. So I'm just asking. You understand? Because remember those areas we're talking about land and certain areas. So I'm just want to interject to put land around Nevis in different areas have large. Because those you see this, those why bringing these out because those are singly owned by one family. Those areas that are called, so it'll be easier to acclaim too than to go to here, there, here, and everywhere in all these different places. Because I'm just talking, so I understand how you want to see things, so everybody see things different, and that's all it is.
There's an easy answer to your question. An easy answer to your question. The developers, investors have come, and they've said that that is the area in which they wish to do their development. Same way Four Seasons came and said that is the area that they want to do their development. Yes. The same way Anbar showed up and bought 700 acres of land, so that's the area that she wants to do her development. And so I can't speak to why that area and not some other area. It is simply where they say they would like to do their development.
Fine, that's fair. Okay, within the same area, I mean, we're going to have agriculture because I know earlier on there was a land for debt swap where, well, I guess that happened under the farmer NRP government. I'm not sure if they can clarify, and the government itself have what 51% shares is National Bank. I'm not sure if that is the same bank, but I would think is National Bank they swap with. Okay, are those land 200 acres or more or less within the same realm, and also the Indian Castle?
The land is 238 acres that was swapped to National.
Okay. Yes. So are those land within the same zone, and also you have Indian Castle Estate with another estate? Are those land we have Fuji Orchard?
Indian Castle is not involved.
Yes. Okay, so Indian Castle. So where the 2,000 acres or 2,400 acres will end? That's what I'm trying to have an idea. Where will it end?
Bank, it would be difficult for me to say that because now.
Okay, I got you. You know who wants to sell? Yes.
Right. You don't know who's going to sell and who's not going to sell. But what I can say to the public and to you, that Indian Castle is not included in this.
Okay.
Cool. So
because the part of it also was a part of the proper. That part of it was also a part of the propaganda that you understand that all Indian Castle, the orchard is not going to be there, and the other side and all. So it's important why you're here and why you're asking this general question.
Right. None of that is true because if that were true, Banky, if that were true, just hear me, give me a chance. If that were true, then I wouldn't be saying that the government doesn't own any land, because the government, everybody knows, owns Indian Castle. All right?
I got you.
My point is that this zone that is proposed, this land that is being sought, would start if you're coming towards let's say you're coming towards Long Point, it would start at some point after you have passed Indian Castle, after you would have passed the fruit orchard, right? So
Yeah.
those lands coming back, I think that one of the significant owners there is a lady called Karen Cook, and you know those lands that come down from the mountain area there. That's where the lands would start, so far as my understanding is concerned, and then it comes back. I think it slopes up to some areas in the Saddle Hill area, and then it comes around. But as I said, it is difficult for me to sit here tonight and tell you, oh, it starts here and ends there, because some people may determine that they will not sell their lands. And so the zone will have to be adjusted accordingly.
That is fair. Yes, son?
Yes.
You might can pause, yes, son. You might can pause.
Oh, yes. Sorry, my bad. A little bit of clarity, Brantley. You spoke to a 238 acres that was in a land for debt swap scenario. Okay. In the land for debt swap, it means that the government probably would have been in debt for something, and the lands were put up as collateral, so to speak, for that debt?
No. Remember the land for debt swap, which was done by the Labour NRP administration, because at the time, Labour and NRP were at the federal level, and we had an NRP administration in Nevis. The land for debt swap was done to try to lower the debt. And so thousands of acres of land in St. Kitts and in Nevis, of course, we don't have as much land owned by government in Nevis, but it's 238 acres in that area. Those lands were swapped to the National Bank for debt. So basically, National Bank took control, ownership of those lands, and our debt was reduced, I think, by $29 million. And so those lands are gone from us.
There were some scenarios, I think, on St. Kitts where the government would have bought back some of those lands, so to speak?
Yes, that happened in St. Kitts, but not on Nevis.
Is there any reason why that was not attempted on Nevis?
We didn't have the money. Yes, and it's as simple as that. St. Kitts was awash with cash, as we know, from the CBI. Surplus after surplus, hundreds of millions of dollars were flowing in, and they used their money in the way that they did. We were not able to get our fair share from that money. And as a consequence of that, we were not able to do some of the things that we might have been able to do had we had the resources. So we didn't have the money to buy back land in Nevis.
What could be? You said the land for debt swap, you said it was a federal thing? That's what you said? With the NRP and the Labour, how that work?
No. I'm saying that at the time, 2012, there was a Labour NRP federal government.
Yes, I got that,
Okay.
So when the land in Nevis put up, is the NIA put up the land for Nevis debt?
Yes.
That's what it was?
Yes.
Okay. Separate debts. So
of course, the NIA has separate debts to the federal government. Yes.
Yes. Of course. Just want to clarify for the listening audience. That's all. No problem. Yes, sir, you're done?
Okay, yeah. So, I just needed some clarity on that specific aspect, which I think the Premier did a wonderful job in doing that. Okay, so back to the SSZ, well, not the SSZ, sorry, the proposed project.
Yes.
Now, some timelines. I would have heard you spoke to organization or group that would have been registered. I think it's called South Nevis Limited or Nevis South Limited.
South Nevis Limited, I think it's called.
And that's
Nevis Limited. Yeah.
Yes, and that's the group that has proposed the project that we are discussing.
That's a group that is seeking to purchase lands. The project, as I understand it, will be a project referred to as Destiny. DESTINY, Destiny. Yeah.
Okay.
So who is the owner? Who is the people of Destiny?
Hold on a second.
Yes, sir.
Hold on a second, Frank. I just want to get some timelines together here. So South Nevis Limited is seeking to purchase the lands.
Yes.
South Nevis Limited was registered on Nevis when as a company?
I don't know. I don't have that information to hand. It should, however, be publicly available because it's registered at the Nevis registry, company's registry. But I don't have that to hand in terms of when they were registered.
Okay. Okay. So that time frame, I was seeking to get that timeline. I think I heard 2023 at somewhere. I don't know if that's correct, but I was just trying to put that.
That can easily be checked. As I said, that's public record, but I just don't have it in front of me in terms of when the company would have been registered.
Okay. But on the other end of that company. Okay. That company is presently seeking to purchase lands from private owners, but as you mentioned, they're not the ones who was proposing the development. The development is proposed by a destiny. Okay. Are the only one realtor, so to speak, that is in representing the company at this point?
The only realtor that I'm aware of on Nevis that acts for the company is 17 Degrees North, that is owned by my wife, Sharon Brantley.
Okay. Do you think that the public, based on that case scenario, you think that the public's question in terms of the possibility of insider information and or conflict of interest, so to speak, is something that should be of concern?
The public questions are fair. And as a public servant, I don't shy away from questions. But what I've responded to say is that my wife is not involved in any way, shape, or form in any business with the government. I am the head of government, and I can confirm that there are no government lands involved. So there's no buying or selling of government lands. She has been a realtor for 20 years. She has had her own business for 20 years. And I believe that like any other business, she's entitled to do business. Right? The issue for me is really not what some are suggesting, but whether or not people can show that there is some actual conflict here in some way, shape, or form. I have said publicly that we have to be, some of us may be making some attacks because it's politically expedient, but we have to be very careful in terms of this road that it seems some of us want to go down. Let us flip the script for a moment. And let us say that the NRP was in office and that the leader of the NRP was the Premier and Minister of Finance, which is normally the case. Would her family members who have significant business on Nevis be required to shut down? Or would that be okay? And there's no appearance of conflict there. Because if we go down this road, Yassan, a whole heap of business and a whole lot of people are going to have to shut down. Because nearly every aspect of business on this island has some interface or interaction with the government. They come for concessions. They engage with the government in some way, shape, or form. So my thing is, and I've made it very clear, I made a national address. I said, I have no interest in my wife's business. She has had her business and she runs her business. She's an independent businesswoman. I have nothing to do with her business. And she has run her business for most of her adult life. So people are entitled to ask the question, but similarly, I'm entitled to respond and to say that my wife, as a citizen of this country and as a business owner, has the right to do business. So if a developer comes in tomorrow, an investor comes in, Yassan Tafari comes in and says, hey, I want to hire you to sell my house or to try and buy a house for me. What is the issue there? The issue only arises, in my humble opinion, if government is involved in some way in that transaction. And in this scenario, the government is simply not involved. I've been at pains to say that if anybody is called and asked about leasing or selling their property, then it's their right to say yea or nay. I don't know that anybody out there can say that they received a call from anybody in this government because the government has simply not been involved. So I hear the noise, but frankly, I think that it's not, I think. I know it's politically expedient for some to make that argument. And as one fella called me the other day and said to me, and he called out some names of some other big players in land in Nevis and said, if it were one of them, we'd not hear the same noise being made. And so that's the situation. The name Brantley attracts a lot of attention, so be it. But unless somebody can show me that there is here some, as you say, insider dealing, some level of something that is untoward, then I am just asking openly and honestly, what are the rules that we are hoping to put in place then for public officials? Because yes, and that would mean that if you entered politics tomorrow, representative politics, then your family, your friends, people close to you, them can't have no business in Nevis that has any interaction with government. So we must decide. And I've been very, very direct about that. I believe that my wife was a legitimate businesswoman for 20 years, has every right to represent anyone that she can represent in a private transaction. Nobody has suggested she's doing any business with the government or the government is in business with her. That to me would be a conflict. But there's no such evidence and there is no such thing happening in fact. And so the rest of the people who are calculating, I see somebody say how much money she's going to make, or what people in business for? Not to make money? Whipping up and trying to whip up public opinion because somehow, as a realtor, she ought not to make anything. She ought not to make a living. But other realtors who are handling the bulk of the real estate in Nevis, it's okay for them to make a living. So, as I said, we have to be careful where we're headed. Because if, as I said, by some miracle, there were to be a change in government, we know that the leader of the NRP currently has a lot of family in a lot of places on this island in terms of business. And so the question now we make,
because all this going to be tied up in again in all the conversation. So we're going. Yeah, so we just go on and go on and on. It
is a legitimate question.
The lines and then yes, and then I just want to get in the listening audience who joining us that we're going to be reading out their comments and stuff like that and their answers and stuff like that. So we're going to get into two more question in a sense, and then we open up the lines about 25 past. Because I want to get into agriculture, food security, the cannabis industry. Because we still have, and at the same time, water policy and land policy. So, you say, yes, son?
No, I myself too want to get into a bit of especially the cannabis.
Yes, so we don't have a chance to still come back in all this because the question more or less come on because we're talking about land policies and agriculture and expansion of homes and different development and stuff like that and all this different stuff. So we are still basically competing within the same realm again. Anyway, so let's talk about cannabis because we still having a lot of people getting locked up when it comes to cannabis, and then we still don't have when it comes to growing up 5 trees or 6 trees and all this different kind of stuff. Because you still cannot go to an office. I'm not sure in Nevis where you have the ecclesiastic, which Jeffrey handling in charge in the federal government, over in Nevis side, which department. I'm not Mr. Eric Evelyn, which is the Minister of Agriculture. I'm not sure. He don't speak much of it. You is the minister itself who really speak much on cannabis when it's time for cannabis. So yes, and we know, and those listeners should know, I already adapt you as the Minister of Agriculture, you know. I don't adapt you to that. So cannabis and agriculture going to fall into one role because you seem to be the one who really more for cannabis, except the Minister of Agriculture in a sense like that. So we want to see why these things happen, how Nevis applies, how it's going to affect Nevis, and why Nevis is really moving slow. Now the question was asked to Mr. Eric Evelyn by Vas Aya over a radio show. I mean, what Nevis is when it comes to cannabis, said well, the federal government is working on it, so they're just following. So I don't really trying to understand what follow mean in a sense like that. So can you explain a little bit on the cannabis industry, and then we get move on to agriculture and stuff like that?
So let me just say that I obviously am not an expert on the cannabis industry or the cannabis business. My sort of advocacy for cannabis really has to do with the need for our country to have some diversification to the economy. And I have felt for some time that cannabis could provide a cash crop that can lead to not only the cannabis itself, but all the byproducts that we know about. that could lead to an industry that employs people, that uses land that is currently lying unused in many instances, and that can really allow our economy to grow in a way that is not dependent on tourism and not dependent on citizenship by investment. If you cast your mind back to the pandemic, Nevis shut down. The airports closed and our economy basically came to a standstill because we're so dependent on tourism. And that is the reason why I have been advocating for cannabis, for various industries, for sustainable zones, these types of developments, because I feel that we need to create some opportunities in the country which are not all susceptible to exogenous forces, as indeed we have with CBI and tourism. So that Banky, has been sort of my approach to this, more on the economic side. In terms of the legal position, we understand that because it deals with the criminalization or decriminalization, that it has to be done at the federal level. And that is why I suppose Minister Evelyn would have said that we are waiting on the federal government to do what they need to do. If you follow the debates in the national parliament, I have been very consistent, even when I was in government at that level, to say that we need to move on the cannabis industry. And in my humble opinion, we have still not done what we need to do. We have still not moved to where I want to see it go, because we have a situation where they have cannabis commission and commission doesn't meet. The commission chairman, one day he's there, the next month he's gone. And if you ask me right now who the cannabis commission chairman is, I really can't even tell you. The reality is
but you're supposed
that
to know, but that doesn't make no sense to me.
But my point is, Banky, there's a lot.
It's a serious project.
Banky, yeah.
Yes.
The reality is that I am saying that we ought to, at this stage,
Yes.
Unity was in government for 7 years. And the new Labour administration has already been in for 3.
Yes.
So that's 10 years. And we're still talking about cannabis.
Of course.
So,
but remember, you was a part of the same Unity government in the premier. So when you're driving these things, then you should make these things in a sense. This conversation we shouldn't really be having. So that's why I'm asking you these things, you know. Why Nevis are doing?
Listen, yes. being a member of Team Unity doesn't mean that I could have moved the cannabis forward on my own. As I said to you, if you have listened to my debates, even when I was foreign minister of this country, I stood up in the parliament and I said to my colleagues in the parliament, not in cabinet, in the public of the parliament, we need to move on this thing. We need to make it happen.
Yes. So why you not make the Minister of Agriculture, support him some more behind this bill where, you supported it in a sense like that, where we can have discussion or whatever need to be happening? Because, as I said, this is an educational show. So when I speak, I don't speak on myself. Generally, I can be blunt on my behalf, but the show is not about me. The show is for the viewing audience, and it's educational. So people are uncertain with a lot of issues going on, whether it's the SSZ, whether it's food security, whether it's ganja. It doesn't matter, because there's everyday people's lives have been affected by these things. We still have music festival on the Nevis in the Sinket side. You allow 4 joints. There's not an age limit. So you have underage people, children inside there, going inside there amongst these things. So these are the real issues. So we have to address these things in a sense, because people are asking these things. And my thing is, can we get back? Are we talking about land? The people I spoke to support this development. The people is not against the SSD in a sense. They are against some. When I speak, when I analyze the majority people speaking, is the size of land and all these things. They're for the development. So I just wanted to know that. They are for the development. The people are concerned about the large amount of land and what's going to go within that special zone. Because I'm not guessing whether different special laws. I don't know. Is you supposed to explain these things as a legal mind? I'm just asking the simple question. As my 5-year-old who in kindergarten at born in primary school, that's what I advocate for. Me not care about me. These are the simple things. So that is what your job is. You are a representative. The people expect you to look out for their interests. So we are here reasoning about these things, and that's all it is. So that is just my take. So it's not nothing personal for me. It's just in general, and those who don't feel to come to the public and speak like this. That's where it is. Yes.
So,
Continue.
and in response, all I will say is that, as I've said, I do not
Yes.
purport to be an expert on cannabis. I have
Yes.
advocated for cannabis from the narrow perspective that I need to see diversification to the local economy. I need
Okay.
Nevisians and Kittians to have options in terms of work,
Yes.
in terms of ability to earn, because Banky, the same way you say you're concerned about your children and not about yourself,
Yes.
I have
Of
more
course.
years behind me than ahead of me at the moment.
Of course.
So I am
Yes.
concerned about my children and
Yes.
grandchildren and the next
Beautiful.
generation that's to come. Yeah. So
So we are
we
in the
need,
same
I
boat.
think,
That's the whole point. We are in the same boat, which
okay.
is good because you see, yes, beautiful.
So we need to move with greater pace to get some of these industries in place. I have gone to the United
Yes.
States, for example. I go to a city like Miami, and you could go into shops in Miami and you buy cannabis products, and it's you know you it's an industry. I went up to Canada, and almost every street corner in Toronto, it's almost as popular as Tim Hortons, which is a coffee shop in Canada. You
Okay.
see all of this that is there. And I'm saying that I've certainly am of the view, I've come to that view, that cannabis can be another industry for us. Just as we in Nevis now have recently passed something to allow online gaming, we see that as another industry. We have the offshore industry, banking, company formations, etc. We have the tourism industry. But we need to provide options for the economy, but we also importantly need to provide options for our people. We have a lot of our young people who are going away to study and are saying they're not going to come back because they don't have good paying jobs here that they can come back to. My responsibility as the Premier of Nevis, as the leader of this island at this point in our history, is to leave Nevis better than I met it, to ensure that there are opportunities on this island for our people, to ensure that people like Yassan, who has some expertise in this industry, could come back and work in that industry here. The same money he's making over there, he could make it here or more. That, for me, is what I am trying to create and what I'm trying to do.
So what I'm
And as
trying
I
to
said,
understand also, because I mean, we're
yes.
going to just, because time is limited, yes, so I'm just showing that. So does Nevis, can you see the federal government is moving slowly on this bill here? So does Nevis have its own autonomy over agriculture or cannabis? I'm just asking this simple question.
So our legal
Yeah.
position, Banky, is that the NIA cannot go down that road on cannabis on its own.
Okay.
That has been our legal
Okay.
position because of the criminal elements to it. The criminal law is a matter for the federal government. So that is why we have been waiting and advocating for it at the national level in the national parliament.
Okay, so within this industry, I mean, it's going to surround land and so forth. So when it comes to land policies, is land in, I mean, you have a discussion when it comes to land earmark, when it comes to agriculture, because cannabis still fall under agriculture, and which areas and stuff like that, and then water policy, then with any industry, whether it's the same SSZ, agriculture, cannabis, these are the same elements that are going to be needed, water and land space. Everybody fighting for the same space. So which areas within the government, yes.
So different with the SSZ is that they are required to provide their own. So if we're going to talk about cannabis industry that the government is responsible for, then obviously now the government would have to find the resources to put in infrastructure. But I take you back to where you started. I think it was you who made the point that most lands in Nevis are private.
Yes.
The government holdings of lands in Nevis are quite small compared, say, to St. Kitts, where, of course, we have the reverse. And as a result of that, land use in Nevis has been especially difficult when people come, for example, and they say to government, where right now people are looking land for livestock farming. The government doesn't have land that's available.
Yes.
So you have those kinds of considerations. But what I will say is that if there are people who ultimately, and this is the way I imagine it to be, that if there are people who ultimately have the capacity to invest and have the technical knowledge, because I'm told the cannabis industry requires a tremendous level of technical know-how, and they can come, then I think that they can partner with individuals here who have land I'm also aware that some cannabis is grown in shade houses or greenhouses. And that's technology that we have become familiar with in Nevis because we've been pushing that technology.
Hold your point. I just wanted to hold a
Yes.
point and let the listening audience and viewers know that they can their comments will be read. We can start reading the comments, Ira, when necessarily, and also we accept to start taking calls anytime now, and then we just work around the conversation and reasoning while we're going at it. So anyone who want to call in, the telephone number is 6618690. The number is across the stream also 6627196, and there's another number. It's WhatsApp call, and then we entertain your conversation, but be respectful. Can we just say reasoning, and we're here to learn. Because there's different people listening to the podcast. We appreciate you guys tuning in to Real Entertainment Network and also subscribe to the YouTube link. We also have a Twitch link and a Facebook link. So our guest this evening, if you're a first-time listener, is the Honorable Mark Brantley, the Premier of Nevis. We're discussing and reasoning about cannabis, land policies, and your SSD bill act that have been passed in the federal government. So there are different views and opinion here. We tend to educate where we bring in people to speak on the issues and not following the traditional crowd when it comes to speculation and stuff like that. We are not one of those broadcasts. And on Tuesdays, we still have the topics where we touch different topics. So it's nothing personal. Sometimes it's educational. We get a little back and forth. But that's all part of the reason. It's our love. So if those see these things, don't feel no way. The Premier is my boy. I mean, he's just a boy. So we all live good. So anyway, about the things there, it's just educational. It's a sensitive topic. So this and sensitive things will come up, so we oversight these things. So, but the Premier just want to give you your props for always coming when I call on you to be a part of the show and don't back down in a sense like that, because your job is to comfort to the people at all times, go on different media to get the message across and debunk. Because as I said, yes, son, go ahead.
I want to get in a couple of questions before people start calling in.
And then I just want people that the lines are open so they don't call. We just interject, answer the call, the people answer the question, we go forward. But go ahead, son.
Right. So
yes,
yes. I know you said that you're not any expert on cannabis and so on. And I would have heard you personally advocating in the House and so on for cannabis, and you actually said, well, you don't even think that they should be talking about any decriminalization. They should go straight legalization and so on. And though I hear you make those utterances and so on, it kind of give me the kind of same energy I get from a lot of people in the field of agriculture, where I find that there's a lot of lip service, where you get a lot of fancy speeches and so on, whether it's World Food Day or whatever it is and so on, and you get some nice speeches that, you know, plays and preys on the emotions of people and so on. But then when it comes to the end result, no, it's a whole other story. Now, I'm saying this because as much as you say this in relation to cannabis, and you say that based on the legal advice of Nevis, that you're worried about the ramifications in terms of the financial issues and so on. St. Kitts, we're one federation, and St. Kitts would have moved ahead on certain things. Even though you say you're waiting on St. Kitts would have moved ahead on certain things. St. Kitts has a medical cannabis authority and office that is open.
Who's in charge? Who's in charge now? Do you know?
The chair is, the chair is Miss. We had a program by
William Knight.
William Knight.
Okay. Yeah.
She's the chair of the Cannabis Authority. So that is operational. So there's a place that you can actually go and get information. I don't know at this point if you actually can get the licenses. There's a question that I want to ask in relation to Nevis, because I find that at this point that is a little challenge as well. Cannabis has been broken down into three major categories: the medicinal cannabis, the recreational cannabis, and the spiritual or religious use of cannabis. The medical cannabis has been placed under the Ministry of Agriculture. So that is where Samuel Duggins and his team is representing that section. However, the recreational and the spiritual, or the personal use, recreational, spiritual or religious use, it has been placed under the Ministry of Ecclesiastic Affairs, which is the ministry that is under the Honorable Jeffrey Hanley. Now, my question is, there is not a ecclesiastic ministry on Nevis. Is there an arm or a representative of the Ministry of Ecclesiastic Affairs on Nevis? So in the event that, no.
No.
So your ministry is not responsible for the Ministry of Ecclesiastic Affairs in any way or
No, the
shape or
ministry,
form?
Ecclesiastical Affairs is a national federal ministry. There's no representative of that ministry over here. When, of course, there are issues involving the churches, because it's predominantly about the churches, then those issues would normally come to the office of the Premier. But there is no arm or branch of the Ministry of Ecclesiastical Affairs, and there is no ministry within the NIA that is known as Ecclesiastical Affairs either.
So in regards to that, then I guess Nevis who would want to be able to benefit from, because I think that area deals with the 56 grams, the 5 trees, and if you're going to get a lounge or something like that. So in relation to that, at this point, they would have to go to St. Kitts. Nevis would have to travel to St. Kitts to get
yes. The national structure that exists would be at this point in time on St. Kitts, yes.
Yes, son.
Okay.
Let me take a call there. A caller coming in, and then we continue the conversation. Let me take this call, okay?
Yes. Let's take the call. Yes.
Caller, good evening, and welcome to the Everything Agriculture Show. Be brief and concise, please. 60 seconds or less, if possible. Hello. Yes, go ahead, please.
Good evening, Brother Banky.
Yes, good evening to you. How are you?
Good evening, Brother Yassa. Good evening, Premier Brantley.
Good evening.
My name is Winston Welcome. And I have some concern and clarification in respect to the SSC zone. First question. What is this SSC zone, and these investors are seeking in detail, because there are concerns that might be negative and that might have some positivity. Now, as I listen to you from other questions that have been asked, I need to ask you, how was contact made and agreed with these investors? What was the approach? What was their approach? And what was your meeting of the mind? Because it seems to me you are...
Caller, 20 seconds. 20 seconds, be concise. 20 seconds, please.
Yeah.
We'll wrap it up. Yes.
And the other thing is, as it been said, your wife is in the mix. Remember, you are the Premier. Your wife is your wife. How did your wife get that deal, or should it be getting that deal? Is it because there was prospective and proactiveness between you and the investor, and knowing that your wife is a real estate broker, it's only fair to let your in?
Caller, you can always call back. All right, caller, we're going to stick with it. We're going to stick with the timeline, so you can always call back, get in the most call. You can always call back. Thanks for calling.
So, Banky, can I answer the caller?
Okay, yes.
Or you want to take another call?
The Premier going to answer your questions.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
So caller, investors approach the government through a variety of ways. They approach through the Ministry of Finance. They usually through the Ministry of Finance and the PSN Finance. They come sometimes through the, what do we call it now? The Nevis Investment Promotion Agency. They come in different ways and different shapes. Sometimes they come from a conversation. You know, you meet somebody and they tell you that, hey, I have an interest in doing something. And then what we normally do is ask for a proposal. You have asked about my wife again, and what I can tell you is that I had no involvement whatsoever in anything to do with these people deciding to use my wife. In fact, I will go further and tell you that my wife knew these people before I did. So nothing came to the government and then there was a suggestion that somehow they were sent to my wife. That is not the case. And I think that people who know me would know that I do not do business that way. So my wife actually knew these people and was engaged with these people. I think she told me that her first engagement with them was merely to find information because the people were interested. They wanted to know who owned. They wanted to know, what was happening on the island in terms of activity, in terms of real estate. And she's a real estate broker, and so she dealt with them. But there is absolutely no truth to the suggestion that I had anything to do with steering those people to my wife's business or in any way, shape, or form. And I will say that because that is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And I'm not here to try to convince anybody of anything. I have seen some of the comments popping up, so I know the audience that I have. I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm telling you what the facts are. You accept them or you don't accept them. But that is the position. My wife actually knew these people long before I had any knowledge of them or engaged with them in any way, shape, or form. The people have come to the government. They have made a formal proposal to the government, and the government is considering that proposal and having some conversations with the public in relation to that proposal. Information is being shared. In fact, I saw that yesterday some information was shared at destiny.com. I think that's the website. They would have gone live, I think, yesterday or probably the day before. And so people can go there and start to at least get some inkling of what is happening.
Yes, sir. Premier, we have a next call coming in. Then you can pick up where you left off. Okay. Call, good evening, and welcome to Everything Agriculture Show. Please be 60 seconds. Be concise, please.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening.
There's a question for the Premier.
Yes.
Can the status of the SSZ be revoked if the developers fail after the fact to develop what was promised? Is there anything in legislation for that in the event of that?
No. Okay.
Carla, that's all the questions. That's all the questions. You want to give all the questions one time, then if you may answer and then listen?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, appreciate it. Thanks for calling. Thanks for calling.
Yeah,
okay.
So caller, that would be a function of the agreement between the parties. Yeah?
Okay.
So it's as far as I recall, it's not in the legislation, but remember, as I said, the zone is created by an agreement, which agreement has to be passed by the Parliament. So the agreement is where the details would be in terms of zone, what it entails, etc.
Okay. Yes, sir. Any questions?
Okay. Yeah. There's so many little things along that line, but I know that line is a very thin line, and right now I don't have any money for any lawyer letters and so I'm going to tread lightly along that line. But anyway, let's go back to the aspect of the cannabis now, right? Here's my thing. You are here right now, and I have heard you over the past week on several different platforms seeking to lend some clarity to the SSZ and the need for such an investment and so on, and how we can be helpful to the island and so forth. And how also that the CBI has failed, and we have been looking for different ways of bringing in foreign investment and so on, and this is a very good opportunity, and now the opportunity has arisen, people are still complaining. However, we are on the topic of cannabis, and one of the things you just highlighted and you zoomed in on was that area where you said you cite from that narrow view of being an additional revenue generator. So my question is, why are we not seeing that same push or thrust to encourage the people or to get people on board with this industry that could be such a game changer? Why not allocate a couple thousands of acres, like St. Vincent would have allocated at least 1,000 acres for traditional growers? Why are we not seeking to do that if this is an industry that based on what you are also presenting here, offers that lucrative opportunity for investment versus now you're here seeking to encourage people to sell out the lands where an opportunity with the CBI, sorry, with the cannabis.
Yes, and with respect, you have never heard me once encourage anybody to sell any land. I said at the start of the show that I like to have fact-based discussion. Yes. So I have not encouraged anybody to sell any land. The only thing that I've said is that if Yasan Tafari owns land, it is his right to decide whether he sells it or not. That's all you've heard from me. No government should tell him whether he can sell his land or not sell his land. And I have said publicly that it is hypocritical for some to have sold their land and then come and attack the very thing that they've contributed to by selling their land. So let us have a fact-based discussion. That for me is very important. Now,
okay, so I stand to be corrected if I said that about the selling land. What I was getting to is the fact that you are promoting the project overall. That it is a good idea for the country. So that's what I meant in that sense. So if I said that, this is what I really meant.
Good. So if you say I've been promoting because I've been trying to give information, because there's been a torrent of negativity from the opposition because they're the ones who are talking, and they have misrepresented quite a bit of what it is the SSZ says and does, and certainly what it is this project is seeking to do. So all I've tried to do is to present the facts. It ultimately will be for the people of Nevis, whether this type of development is desirable, whether they want a development, or whether we want to continue, as we have been continuing, where we have incremental growth. This promises to give us significant transformative growth, as the Four Seasons did for Nevis 30 years ago. You asked about St. Vincent, you said they've allocated thousands of acres. Now, I don't know the source of that acreage. I know that in Nevis, the government doesn't have thousands of acres that it could allocate to anything because we simply do not own that scale of lands on the island of Nevis. On St. Kitts, there is that possibility that can be done on St. Kitts. So you're asking, why have I not been an advocate? My answer would be that I think I have been an advocate. Publicly, in the Parliament, I've spoken. I have been one of the few voices that has been consistent from when I was in government and now that I'm in opposition. I'm not saying anything that's different. Check all the budget debates that you want to check. You'll see that I have been consistent, that we're dragging our feet on this. Let us go. And like Brantley pointed out, I have said, I do not believe that this quarter step that we've been doing makes sense. This idea that it's medicinal only, I feel that what we need to do is to simply remove the legal restrictions and educate our people. I don't use marijuana, and I am not going to encourage anybody to use marijuana. But equally, some people don't drink alcohol, and I drink alcohol. So I respect people's rights to determine for themselves what they decide to do. What I feel, however, is necessary is that we have education. And that's been one of my concerns, because a lot of the advocates for cannabis have not equally been advocates for education. You hear a lot of things like this: no downside, no harm whatsoever from cannabis. I don't agree with that. I feel that you need a balanced approach, and I don't want to see, for example, young children using cannabis. And I think the only way we can do that is to have an effort at educating our people. Alcohol, for example, I think you have to be 18 to consume alcohol, right? So those are some of the things that I think we need to put in place. But as I said, with the proper education, with a public relations campaign in the country, I feel that we need to just legalize, allow people, because, the irony of this is actually happening already. It's actually happening already. That's the irony of it. So it's almost as if we are continuing to suppress an activity that is already widespread.
Yep. Yes, and I mean, I
So,
appreciate what the Premier just said. I mean, actually, it's from how we look at things. I mean, it's actually legalized already. So the Premier can want to help push. I mean, the framework to whatever need to be taken place and make sure it's speed up. But I want to touch on two more things. Also, food security, which is a must, and if land are earmarked for agriculture and the expansion, out of the 2025 now, we're moving into 2030. I'm not sure policies you as the Premier, as I said, I already nominated you as the Minister of Agriculture. So I left as the former manager of the Indian Castle Estate, the Fruit Tree Orchard, that was the model that was set for the 2025 agenda. Since I've left, I know there was a in thing somewhere in Ginger, there was a town hall meeting where the farmer, well not the farmer, well, the Minister of Agriculture had said, well, we'll ask a question about the state of Indian Castle and nothing is going on down there, and he was told he was being untruth because the minister himself said that, I mean, open day, many production coming out, but which means I myself was the last manager there, and the last production came out of down there was in 2023, with my last tenure was this December 2023. Also, when it comes to water policies, if when they are drilling wells, I mean, if they're drilling wells for agriculture on the island the same way, and as you yourself said, there's land limited for people to get land to farm. So how will these development affect the agricultural sector in a sense when it comes to cannabis and all the different stuff, and not also as the Minister of Tourism? I know for months there have been a project going on at the Hamilton Sugar Estate, just like the New River development. There have been no one speaking about it, whether the tourism department, and I know you love to advocate for tourism. So I would like to know if you know anything about this project. I mean, what is entail and how it will affect the people of Nevis for
Back you ask
employment.
100 questions. You'd ask 100
Well, I
questions in
have
one
to.
going.
Well, that's some
So
of the
no,
things, you
I'm
know, man.
saying
That's
ask me.
that's
Let
some
me
of the
answer.
things, you know. Me
You know.
just, yeah, man. That's some of the things, you know. Me not have nothing right down in a bridging. So me just, me have, I just me nothing right
So,
down. Me just get everything in my
all
head,
right.
and there's some
Okay.
reason. That's all it.
So,
Yeah, man. No free
but
sorry about that. But yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
in terms of responding, so you started out by asking about
Yeah.
food security, and
Yes.
as you know, that's one of the pillars for the sustainable island state that has been pushed
Yeah.
by the federal government and that we have accepted is the right way to go. Food security is part of that. And if you look again at the SSZ law, it does seek to incorporate those pillars into the SSZ zones. Wherever they're formed, you have to be able to do that as well. Yeah? Now, what are we doing in terms of food security? You mentioned Indian Castle. You and I are not going to
Yes.
agree on Indian Castle because I believe the best thing that could happen is for you to come back to Indian Castle. So I'll put that out there
Yes.
and leave that now to one side and continue. So,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well,
Indian
what the
Castle,
joke
Indian,
is, I change the understanding like moment. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Like, what the joke be? I miss something.
hold on,
Miss
man.
something,
Let
you
the Premier continue, man. We'll get back to it.
know.
Let the Premier continue.
Okay, go ahead, Premier.
So yes, and a laugh, me not laugh, eh? So just so you know.
All right.
But
All right.
I know when you were there, there was a
Yes.
very sort of serious approach. And yes, the buck stops with the government, the ministers. Stops with Eric Evelyn in this instance. It stops with me ultimately as the Premier. But I think
Yes.
it's important that when people are put in positions to work, to function, to manage, to cut the grass, right? Whatever your position
Yes.
is, that people should also do what is required of them. And I'm very clear on that.
Of course.
So
Yes.
at the end of the day, those of us who are up the chain, we must take responsibility. But I also want to hold responsible everybody who is charged with a job, being paid to do a job, that they too must do their
Yes.
job. And that's one thing I'll say
Beautiful.
about you. You told me you used to live on the farm, talk to the plants and all kind of things. So
Of
I know
course.
you used to
Still
be there
does. Still
at
does.
all
Still
kind of
does.
time, right? Okay.
Still does. Still does.
In terms of food security, I think for Nevis, that Indian Castle fruit orchard is still going to be very important. Okay.
Carlo, we have Mr. Brantley, who
Yes.
calling in. Yes.
Are you going to the calls?
Carlo, good evening.
Okay.
Yes. Welcome to the Everything Agriculture Show. 60 seconds. Concise, please.
Good evening. I ask quickly. The SSD bill that's passed to a monitoring board. As far as we know, one has not been established as yet. So what type of due diligence is being done by the government to look at the current investor that is on play, and the government aware that at least one of the named investors has advocated for a free society, and is there any concern that that is the objective of their development in Nevis? Thank you.
I appreciate your call. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, tell me, what do you want me to do? Answer?
You hear the questions. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
So I think that's a great question. No monitoring committee has been set up as yet, but I can tell you that any investor or investment that comes to Nevis, there is a vetting process that is done. We have agencies that do that for us. This idea of free society, I see that has popped up in the discussion, and people believe what they want to believe. That's everybody's right. Some don't believe in God. Some believe in God. My position is that as the Premier of Nevis, I deal with proposals that come to the government. And the proposal that has come to the government.
I want to clarify that the point that we're educating the people. So do you know what type of development? Those are going to be like, we want to debunk this, whatever these people, the general public is assuming as a libertarian. I don't know these terminologies.
Right.
Those are going to have their own laws put over there. So that's what that is this thing. They will have yes.
So that's what I'm seeking to do.
Hold your point. Sorry about that. We got to go, because it's going to be a busy night. So just get a cigar, get some ham on, just cool down. Everything going to be all right. We're going to get through this reasoning. Carla, good evening. Be concise.
Yeah, good evening to you guys, man. And good evening to the Premier there. I want to thank the Premier for coming on to clear up the airwaves.
Yes.
And straight to it. Yeah, this is Burl Jones. I got a lot of stuff that I maybe...
Concise, Carla.
I don't think that the time is...
Go ahead. Get to the Christians.
The time ain't no good for me. But
get to the Christians, yes.
I might end up like Nike.
Get to the Christian, Carla.
Did you find that word suffering yet, man? With that SSC?
That's your Christian, Carla?
Yeah, man.
All right. Thanks for calling. Okay.
Yeah, Bill, thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah, but be precise. We have a busy night. Come on, get the Christian. Other callers.
Let me tell the Premier what's the matter. My comparisons are getting Livingston Sergeant, Derek Parry recognizing in their own hometown. That Brian Claus that want to get that address in the Federal House and questioning geothermal. Is that geothermal is control of geothermal totally transferred to the federal government in light of the clause 113 in the Constitution? And we go on. And let me go to the SSC.
Carla, your time up now, so you have to call back, okay? Go ahead, Premier.
So going back to the previous caller, said that one of these investors, and incidentally, I see a lot of very nasty commentary about a gentleman called Roger Ver. And again, the opposition, in its efforts to whip up hysteria in the country, have gone on a rampage against this gentleman. We have no proposal in front of us that involves Mr. Ver. I have said on radio that the investor is a gentleman called Mr. Olivier Jensen, and that is the person who has come forward and is promoting this particular development. So I just want to put that on record, because attacking people for the sake of attacking people is really irresponsible in my view. Now, the caller is right that I have myself done some reading, and I have realized that this chap who has come forward, he has some ideas in terms of what he would like to see, the world that he would like to see. And that's where this whole libertarian free society idea comes in. The point that I'm seeking to make, however, is that when as government we consider a proposal, we consider the proposal that is made to us. I don't ask somebody who's making a proposal, are you agnostic? Are you Christian? Are you Catholic? Are you Rasta? What we do is we look at the proposal, and the proposal that we have in front of us has none of those elements about sovereignty or anybody creating their own state. I think going to the second caller, he's referring to a conversation that was happening on Von Radio, where, again, in an effort to mislead, one individual said that the SSZ allowed individuals to come into Nevis and create their own country. And I simply asked him to find me the section. He's still looking. It's been about 2 weeks. He still can't find the section because there's no such section. And going back to what I said when I started, this is why, if we're going to have a conversation, let us have a fact-based conversation. At the end of the day, we may disagree, but let it be based on facts, not on fiction. Don't tell a man that we have passed legislation to allow people to come in to create their own country when that is false, because that just whips up hysteria. And a lot of us who are speaking publicly, I think that we should consider what we say, because we have an obligation and a duty to try to educate other people who might be listening. They may not agree with what you're saying, but at the very least, they should leave with an understanding of that which we are speaking about. And so that whole idea about free society and all of that, people believe what they want to believe. I have to deal with what is in front of me as a proposal for development, and whether or not that development will bring value for Nevis, will allow our children opportunities, will allow Nevisians abroad to come home because there are now good jobs and opportunities in the land of their birth. That is what I believe we have to consider. Are we protecting the environment? Are we getting development in a part of Nevis that all of us admit has seen no development for over 100 years? What is it we want? That, to me, is a conversation that I am trying to have with the public.
Yes, son?
You
The
know,
mic pass. Second mic. Oh, go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
yeah, you know, Mr. Brantley, I've heard this argument about nothing has been done for over 100 years and so on. And I guess that's one of the reasons I was seeking to tie the reality of history in terms of, you know, land and land ownership and so on, and people looking at the passing it down to generations, and also if eventually, for example, prior to this project coming in, there were some plans afoot by the government to seek to develop that area. I think there was a proposal, some talk about it in the former NRP, and then your government, I think, in Parliament or in the House, you would have mentioned that you would have planned to develop a road to further develop that as a sort of what do you call it, the Kennedy Simmons Highway 2.0 or something to that effect, right? So there was seemingly seen the need to develop those areas, and what would have happened? They might have had foreign investors, and you might have had some of these same people who, after these roads, because infrastructure would have to develop, increase the value of property and so on, that they would be in a position where the land would be more valuable, more attractive, and they themselves too, or their descendants, might have been able to get into business like that. So why not that approach where we seek to encourage even our own developers, whether it be the Dean Daniels or the Kevin Huggins or whoever else, you know, Urban Jones and so on, to seek to facilitate such development versus seeking the foreign investor to take up such chunks of lands?
So, first of all, we did not seek a foreign investor. A foreign investor approached us.
Okay.
Secondly, those lands have been sitting there for 100 years. Some of those lands, over 100 acres in some instances, are owned by one person, one family. So, if they have not seen it fit to try to develop those lands over all those years that they've owned those lands, what is it are we supposed to do? The government has a responsibility to try to create development. In this scenario, you are absolutely correct. We had indicated that we were in the process of having to go out with what is called an RFP, a request for proposals, to have a road put in over there. In a way, it reminds me a lot of the Kennedy Simmons Highway, because what would have happened is that taxpayers would have been putting in a road into private lands, through private lands. And that's what happened on the Southeast Peninsula as well, because as we know, the lands over there were private lands. Once, however, we didn't have the resources to do it. we were trying to investigate the cost. I think some of the figures that were being bandied about is more than $40 million it would cost to put in a road. And so when we heard that there may be a possibility of a development and that we may be able to pass that cost on to those developers, and you said foreign, but I really don't care if developers are foreign or local, because this government gives everybody the same concessions, foreign or local. In this case, they happen to be foreign. So it would, in my humble opinion, be foolish of the government to rush in to spend over $40 million on a road when there is a possibility that a developer can come and that cost can be passed on to that developer. And it was that simple analysis that was done to say, let us hold on this push for the government to find money, borrow money, do whatever to do that road. Bearing in mind that we have other projects that we are committed to and that we would like to do. So that really was the only thinking in that sense, Yasan.
But Premier, with all due respect,
Yes,
as I analyze,
also we have to try get you some of the comments and some of the questions coming in too. Remember, you have to get you some of the comments, and we're going close on time. I know the Premier, I'm not sure if you have a special time to leave in the next 15 minutes. I'll be able to write now, but at least we get the reason going. If it's the Premier time.
You did tell me 2 hours, but I'll hang on you for a bit.
All right, no problem. We appreciate that. So Yasan, go ahead.
Yeah, I kind of lost track a little bit of the the question I had in relation to the comment that the Premier made. So I guess I'll have to first.
Like Urban Jones and speaking about Urban Jones and these different local
developers. It was something to respond to what he said, but I don't recall right now. So I guess we'll have to move on to something else.
Okay. You could go to the comments at the same time. You can read up some of the comments and questions if any is there.
Okay, so let me go back to some of the comments. Okay, we didn't want it to go that way. It's a government response. Are you not? Okay. The word sovereign is in the title of that zone. Somebody was asking, is the word sovereign in the title of that zone? I don't think, right?
I think we've put that very clearly, that is a myth. That is something that was being peddled that isn't accurate.
Okay.
Also, there's a question here, if the SSZ going to have their own judicial system and something like that?
The legislation speaks to it, and it says that the High Court and Eastern Caribbean Court and the Privy Council are still going to be the relevant courts. But of course...
So they will have their own judicial system?
No, the legislation says that our court system, High Court, Eastern Caribbean High Court, Court of Appeal, and the Privy Council would be the courts for that zone as well.
Okay. So,
maybe I put it this other way. The answer is no. They won't have their own court system.
Exactly. Yes,
but
yes, appreciate that. Continue.
You have other questions for me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm seeking to go through the comments. Okay, let's see. What amount of lands? Okay, thousands of reasons. Okay, I need to find out. This
I see a comment on the screen. Is Destiny linked to South Nevis? I don't know if I'm allowed to respond because I see something pop up on the screen. So I just want to clarify. It's from Jeffers Lewis. I just want to clarify that South Nevis is the entity that is purchasing the lands. Destiny is the name of the proposed development. So yes, they are linked. Yeah.
I'm not sure if you had answered the question with the Hamilton Sugar Estate about the development and what kind of development it is when it comes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the Hamilton Estate, as you know, was abandoned for quite some time. In fact, it was falling down.
Yes.
We had an approach by some residents here who have come in and made their home here. They've bought a home, I think, in the Hamilton area. And they came and approached us and said that they had a proposal to do a vanilla farm. And we thought it was an interesting proposal. In fact, You guys are the experts in agriculture, but I learned from those people that apparently vanilla had been growing in Nevis for quite some time, and that they found vanilla growing in the mountains and all around in places in Hamilton, etc. So we thought, as again, I come back to the word diversification, as we're looking to do new things, different things, and to innovate, that it was a good idea. And these people have gone ahead and have created quite a substantial investment there in terms of vanilla. And they have that vanilla farm. The vanilla farm was at the back of the old Hamilton estate mill and all of that. And they later came to us and said, listen, this thing is falling down. Would you be prepared to give us a lease on that so that we can, one, seek to stop the decay that is going on, two, clean it up, three, put adequate signage, and then four, there used to be a house, which I said was the manager's house, which was now in ruins, that was on the side. Could they also lease that? They will renovate that and make that their visitor center. So that what we're trying to create there now is another tourism attraction. So people who come can go there, they can get a drink, they can get something to eat, they can be informed about vanilla, they can tour the ruins, and they can tour the vanilla farm as well. So that is what that project is designed to do.
All right, beautiful. Okay, yes, one. I appreciate that, Fumi.
You're welcome.
Yes, one. Any question for the Fumi? Fumi, we're going to wrap it up in the next by 9:15. So we have a next 40 more minutes. So those who have any question, any calls, want to take part. I mean, this is your time to yes, on with the comments. Any other questions?
Yeah. So I think the question that I was going to ask the Premier at the time, because I think he was speaking to the rationale for not doing the road. What I'm thinking, based on what I am understanding,
I prefer the language of putting it on hold, because as I said, we simply did not continue. We simply did not continue because we said it did not make any economic sense for us to spend that money if somebody else will come in and spend it.
But this is what I'm saying now. Based on your explanation now in relation to, sorry, not your explanation, but in terms of what is required by the SSZ bill, in order for this development to even become even something close to a reality, the people would first have to purchase the lands. So
purchase or lease, yes.
Purchase or lease. So unless you are telling me that you are guaranteed that these lands are going to be sold or leased by those who are owners of the land at this point, then a rationale like that to say you're going to stop based on the fact that you don't even know that this project is going to get off the ground. And if so, we don't even know how long, because we have to wait for.
But your argument cuts in the opposite direction as well. Would you want me to try to borrow $40+ million to put in a road when I don't know? So when I finish putting the road now, suppose people do sell their land and they proceed with the SSZ. You would probably be one of the first to tell me, Mr. Brantley, you should have waited and see what happens, rather than committing the taxpayer to an additional $40+ million. Yes.
Although I see that argument, I might also be thinking that, well, since you put it in, that you also created the environment and the space for local developers to even consider putting more projects over there, because as you lighten the Kennedy Simmons Highway, that is what happened after that.
Actually, I'm not so sure that's what happened at Kennedy Simmons Highway, because what ultimately happened is most of the land was sold to Christopher Harbour, right? And if you look at that as an example, if Christopher Harbour had come wanting to buy virtually all of the peninsula in St. Kitts, and the government of the day had the option in front of them, do we go and spend that millions of dollars on that Kennedy Simmons Highway, or do we let Christopher Harbour spend that money? They may well have opted to say, let Christopher Harbour spend that money. Because at the end of the day, what you're going to have is really the taxpayers of the country paying to put a road through private property. That's really what it is, because I said the 238 acres that the government did own over there, that was poofed away with the land for debt swap. So that's gone. So I come back, therefore, to the point that there's a lot of speculation one way or the other. We thought that rather than committing our island to even more borrowing and more debt for infrastructure in an area, in the hope that if we put in a road, people will go and do development. Remember, infrastructure is not only road, we'd also have to put in water. That may be another 40 million. And then we'd have to put in electricity, maybe another 20 million. So you and I would have been investing about $100 million over there in order to create the environment for people who own land over there now to decide what they want to do with it. We had the option of at least considering these investors who, by law, would be responsible for putting in that infrastructure for themselves, not the taxpayers of Nevis. And so, as I said, we decided to hold. And we will evaluate and see what happens.
Yes, so now let me try to get you some of the questions what coming in. Yes. Because we have 5 more minutes. So this, I have a question here, Premier, from someone. What happens to the property of the SSZ if the wishes to sell its interest partially or fully? Also, should the government hold the SSZ property before the sales of transfer of this land? Before you answer, let me get a call coming in and then we continue. Carlo, good evening. Everything Agriculture Show.
Fortuna, love and greeting, Brother Blanky.
Yeah, greetings. Yes.
And blessed night, Brother Yassan, and blessed night, Brother Premier, and blessed night, Brother Garfield.
Yes.
Yeah, I would just like to...
Is Yasson, not Garfield? Go ahead.
We're laying within this bill that was passed in the Parliament. But I would like to ask the Premier before I go further. Is the bill gazetted, Brother Premier?
I don't think it has been gazetted yet. I have not seen it gazetted, no.
But the Premier, is the bill gazetted or is just a...
He said no. He said no.
Into law.
Said the bill is not gazetted as yet.
So I have not seen any evidence that it's been gazetted as yet.
Indication to make some changes on what the bill is laying out to. What I would like to ask, I heard you make some statement there on your program with when my brother Matt Mahan and the other brother was on the radio with you. But what I would like to know, if this is a development that you are insisting that the cabinet was able to not really had any much influence in it, but you're stating that within the legislation it was drafted by the Attorney General. But today the Attorney General was to hinder us to not lay the groundworks on what the legislation really was drafted and what the influence was far from the capacity now is now laying out as a development purpose. So I would like to ask you about the Premier. If is this the ground that you're looking for Nevis to really rise as a development towards economical stability, or is something that is creating and the notion of private investors captivating a lot of things that are dominating in the economical market?
Thanks for your call, Carla. Appreciate that.
Short answer, call is that we see this as one option, and we are hoping to explore many options so that the island of Nevis is on a secure economic footing, that the government of Nevis can raise the necessary funds to do the necessary things in healthcare, in education, social safety nets, infrastructure, water. All of those are very important. And part of the problem in Nevis is that our tax base has been so tiny, so limited, that it has been exceedingly difficult to do major projects. And so the expansion of the economy is for us the way to go. And we see these options as options that will allow us to expand our economy, to create jobs. This particular proposal is talking about creating over 2,000 jobs in construction, and then over about the same number of jobs in ongoing upkeep and thereafter in terms of the functioning of that zone. So if the people of Nevis, who, when the Four Seasons came, the Four Seasons would have employed over the years anywhere between 600 and 1,000 people. You are now here talking about more than 2,000 people being employed. And you suddenly have, I think, a base for employment, tax generation, for consumption, for business. The proposal is suggesting that local businesses may want to set up in the zone, supermarkets, restaurants, and the like. So the truth is, I think, that there are a number of possible opportunities that exist. And the question for us is to have a fulsome debate about those. And as I said, ultimately, for the people of Nevis to determine whether they want this or they don't want it. But from my perspective and my position as the Premier of Nevis, I am responsible for attracting investment, local and foreign, attracting money into the country, allowing the country to grow and to develop. This island took a leap forward when the Four Seasons came. And one of the biggest complaints that I've heard, particularly from the opposition about my government, is that we have not been able to attract a major investor. They say the investors are out at sea. They say the investors are not coming ashore. But now that an investor has come ashore, and that investor is saying that I want to do something significant on the island of Nevis, the same people who said investors were not coming ashore say send him back out to sea. That is the nature of the politics. I have to rise above the politics and engage in a meaningful debate and discussion in the country about development. This show tonight would have highlighted things like food security.
Carl, Premier, let me take this one
Cannabis.
call and then...
Yes, okay.
Yes, sorry about that. We'll take this one call, shall we, at the time? Carl, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes.
Within the SSC zone, I would like to ask, because I've been hearing that they're going to have their own police station and like hospital and what's not. So who is going to be the employees, people who is like nurses at the hospital, police who is already like police within the stations, or they're going to bring in their own?
So
right, thanks for your question, Paula. Appreciate it.
That's a very easy answer. Under the legislation, they're required to finance their own healthcare systems within the zone. So I don't anticipate they'll have a hospital, but certainly I would anticipate they'll have clinics and the like within the zone, because that is their responsibility under the legislation. In relation to police, I too have heard that. We have no such suggestion or proposal in front of us. What I can say is that they will be responsible for security within their zone. And again, I go to Four Seasons, which is an example that every one of us understands. Four Seasons has a full security force that exists within Four Seasons. Clearly, if there are criminal activities that are happening, then that security force can call on our local police. But currently, we have a model that at Four Seasons that I think is, at least it gives us some idea of what this could look like in terms of internal security. Exists at Four Seasons already. They have a head of security, they have a whole security force existing at Four Seasons. And so I think that's a good example for us to use in terms of just trying to understand what this concept is. I heard, for example,
Okay,
Banky, just allow me 1 more minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
I heard, for example,
ahead,
a suggestion being made by some that, oh, this is going to be some private zone and Nevisians are not going to be allowed to go in there. Again, that is nonsense. Yes. Nonsense. But let me ask you and Yassan a question now. Could you get into your car right now and drive into Four Seasons?
Well, I'll have to stop by the security gate and let them know we're going to have them staying there, going by the bar and stuff like that. Of course, there's security at the gate and stuff like that.
So there's security.
There's no issues apart from that.
Right? But this is my point. So again,
the clarity is good enough. That's why you're here. You do that's why clarity is fine, and I appreciate you bringing the clarity to the people.
Our people need to consider, because we have on island already an example of what they want to call it, an enclave, a residence resort establishment, a zone, or whatever language you want to use. That is the Four Seasons. So we can decide after this we're gonna have a drink at the bar there, but we know we have to go through security and we got to tell them where we're going for, etc. But that doesn't mean that it's closed off to us. It simply means that there's some protocols in place. So I hear a lot of this being said about Nevisians being locked out. That is simply false. And that is why I'm saying, let us get a fact-based discussion.
Okay, Premier, I got a caller here.
20 past 9.
I got a caller here.
Holding
on for a while. So let me let the caller ask his question. Caller?
Go ahead.
Good evening to everybody on the panel. It's interesting to listen to the program about land and land. Why? I could recall years ago, and when they have a lot to say, they're very vigorous. I could recall years ago, we had a discussion about land for debt swap. The same premier deal was very rigorous, very forceful. Now today, you're trying to convince people about land and foreigners with land, where we're supposed to be singing the same song all the time. You all keep flip-flopping with people. Kennedy Simmons is alive, and he can't come to the nation to tell us what happened to the Southeast Peninsula and all the land was sent over there. You look, we're up in the same gen. And I'm saying, you politicians, when I am the outside stop, play with these citizens. Because you was very passionate, Mr. Brantley, concerning land for that swap. You rile up Nevis people. Now today, you're convincing people that land's supposed to sell to this investor and this land. Stop play with the citizens of this country. We have a generation coming up, and people are not going to sit idle by and think you have a publishers all the time. I listen to the mouthful, very rigorous about land for that swap. All the tickets, when you hold the team, today, you want to convince us that also by with that. Stop playing with people, Mr. Mark.
You got him a second scholar.
Gentlemen, I've stayed with you, gentlemen, because we've been having.
Yes,
I've stayed with you.
Yes, we appreciate that, Premier. We're wrapping up now. So, Yason, give your wrapping up, and then Premier, you get wrapping up, and then let me just give my wrap up first. Let me just thank you for being part of the show. We appreciate you. I'll reach out to you if you can continue the conversation, because as you realize, the people have a lot to say, and I appreciate the people. Sorry if there's anything that people have been disrespectful. We apologize for that, because that is not the show intention or anything like that. But I just say it's a sensitive show, so people sometimes would lose their cool, and which I'm not the kind of person. It's an educational show. So we just want to thank you for being a part of the show. Thank the callers, the viewers, for those who partaking for the show and choosing really everything agriculture, and hopefully subscribe and continue to be a part of the show on every Tuesday. So Yashan, your part, and then we'll give the Premier the last wrap up. The Premier really overextended this time, and we really show appreciation for that, and shows those who take part. We didn't really take it for granted. So if we didn't get all the questions out, but the show is there to review and can to watch anytime. Yashan, continue.
Yeah, well, I, like you, want to thank the Premier for coming forward, and I like the fact that he said it's an open invitation whenever we want to call on him again. And the reason I'm saying that is because based on this conversation, I realized that the 2 hours plus seemingly is not even enough. And there are a number of things that I would have wanted to get in that I really didn't get in as well. So I'm openly inviting you back, Mr. Premier, for another conversation in the not-too-distant future. Also, as a wrap-up, Banky, I can't let that slip away, that the Premier has put you on the spot. So, he wants you back at Indian Castle. So, I'm not going to let that slip away. At the same time, Mr. Premier, in relation to cannabis, I am going to put up my hands, because I realize, honestly, that there's nothing happening. And you made a comment about you don't understand people getting paid for not doing anything. And at this point, I can say that about the minister in relation to cannabis in Nevis right now, and also Minister Jeffrey Hanley and St. Kitts where Ecclesiastic Affairs is concerned, because at this point, even after 2-3 years where this thing has been passed, we can't go to the Ecclesiastic Affairs and get the license for the 5 trees, now the 56 grams, and police is still locking up people. So my thing is, from the government side, you all need to deal with what really needs to be dealt with in terms of the regulations, so that you can tell us that it's licensed, and you should be able to, but then when you go to the authority that should be able to grant you these permissions, you're not, but then police is still locking you up for doing what you really should be able to do legally. So, at least the criminally, right? So, in that regards, I'm hopeful that, there's some things that can be done in terms of the public relations and education. I am here. and I'm putting up my hand. So you can contract me. If you don't want to hire me, you can contract me. And I'm willing to do that bit in terms of doing it. So you have no excuse right now. I'm putting you on the spot. Just like you put Banky on the spot, I'm putting you on the spot now too. Right. And that's my closing. People,
minor matters. Yes.
Well, so thank you. Thank you very much. And I thank you for the invitation. I've been reading the comments and I realized that this show appears to have a particular audience. And so I want to say to that audience that let us settle down. Some people are trying to be political and overly so. There will be a time for the politics. And when that time comes, I think everybody who knows me knows that when politics time starts, we will deal with the politics. That is not something that I'm afraid of. I want to just say at this point, this government is midway through a term. We intend to get things done on this island. And part of getting things done on this island is getting substantial development done on Nevis. Because our job is to create the environment for our people to prosper. And the thing that bothers me in all of this toing and froing and coming and going and whole heap of noise making is that some who making noise already have money in their pocket from the same developers in the same south of Nevis. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. Make up your minds as to where we're going. And that is why I'm saying, let us stop with all the posturing and the rhetoric and really get down to what does this development purport to do? And do we want this type of development for Nevis? That to me is the discussion I want to have. All the nenge foolishness that some people are engaged in, I don't even know why. Because some of them who talking ain't make $1, and who they're talking for, I can tell you, would have made millions of dollars. So, on that note, let me thank you guys for having me. If I got another show tomorrow, call me back. Because I like the engagement.
Yes.
I like the engagement. I like the opportunity to reach an audience which probably on other fora would not listen to me.
Yes, so that's why I'm to come and choose, you know, man. You're there, sit down, ask them to come and choose, you know, man.
And as the Premier of Nevis, you see Banky throwing out things, but he don't answer yet about coming back to Indian Council.
Well, may I invite you to come and choose today. Well, may I invite you to come and choose today on the topic for 8 o'clock, where we continue the conversation. But if you're available, that is
let me just end, guys, by just saying thank you. I think the conversation has been good. It's been respectful. I'm sorry that the format is that we really couldn't answer all the questions. But I think that what this tells us is that democracy is alive and well in our country. And despite the difficulties that we have, these kinds of shows show us that freedom of expression, freedom of speech, which for me is the foundation of a strong democracy, that it's alive and well. So thank you, much respect to you. And you have kept me way past my bedtime, but I'm grateful that I had this opportunity. And again, Banky, you need me, just link me. All right?
Definitely. I appreciate that. And thanks for all those. Yes. We just wrap. That's it. So thanks for those tuning in again. And I'll reach out to you next time for them to come on the show. Ira, appreciate you guys.
It's inspirational, educational, and you won't want to miss it. It's everything agriculture. Hey, this man Easy, inviting you to tune in.